Hey guys, welcome back. I know I've fallen way behind on my Lord of the Rings thing because of Star Wars, but I'm sure that doesn't matter to most of you, but to the 20 of you that still watch this, I apologize. Chapter 11 in Book 3? Yeah, Book 3, this chapter's called The Palantir. Let's do this. The sun was sinking behind the long western arm of the mountains when Gandalf and his companions, and the king with his riders, set out again from Isengard. Gandalf took Merry behind him, and Aragorn took Pippin. Two of the king's men went on ahead, riding swiftly, and passed soon out of sight down into the valley. The others followed at an easy pace. Ents in a solemn row stood like statues at the gate, and their long arms uplifted, but they made no sound. Merry and Pippin looked back when they had passed some way down the winding road. Sunlight was still shining in the sky, but long shadows reached over Isengard, gray ruins falling into darkness. Treebeard stood alone there now, like the distant stump of an old tree. The hobbits thought of their first meeting, up on the sunny ledge far away on the borders of Fangorn. They came to the pillar of the White Hand. The pillar was still standing, but the graven hand had been thrown down and broken into small pieces. Right in the middle of the road, the long forefinger lay, white in the dusk, its red nail darkening to black.
"The Ents pay attention to every detail,"
said Gandalf. They rode on, the evening deepening in the valley. "Are we riding far tonight, Gandalf?" asked Merry after a while. "I don't know how you feel with a small ragtag dangling behind you, but the ragtag is tired and will be glad to stop dangling and lie down."
"So you heard that,"
said Gandalf.
"Don't let it rankle. Be thankful no longer words were aimed at you. He had his eyes on you. If it is any comfort to your pride, I should say that, at the moment, you and Pippin are more in his thoughts than all the rest of us."
"Well, what else could I say?" said Merry. "I'm sorry, Pippin, but you really must wait till the morning. I'll be as curious as you like after breakfast, and I'll help in any way I can at wizard wheedling. But I can't keep awake any longer.
If I yawn any more, I shall split at the ears. Yeah.
Good night." Pippin said no more. He lay still now, but sleep remained far away, and it was not encouraged by the sound of Merry breathing softly, asleep in a few minutes after saying good night. The thought of the dark globe seemed to grow stronger as all grew quiet. Pippin felt again its weight in his hands, and saw again the mysterious red depths into which he had looked for a moment. He tossed and turned and tried to think of something else. At last he could stand it no longer. He got up and looked round. It was chilly, and he wrapped his cloak about him. The moon was shining cold and white, down into the dell, and the shadows of the bushes were black. All about lay sleeping shapes. The two guards were not in view. They were up on the hill, perhaps, or hidden in the bracken. Driven by some impulse that he did not understand, Pippin walked softly to where Gandalf lay. He looked down at him. The wizard seemed asleep, but with lids not fully closed. There was a glitter of eyes under his long lashes. Pippin stepped back hastily, but Gandalf made no sign. And drawn forward once more, half against his will, the hobbit crept up again from behind the wizard's head. He was rolled in a blanket, with his cloak spread over the top, and close beside him, between his right side and his bent arm, there was a hummock, something round wrapped in a dark cloth. His hand seemed only just to have slipped off it to the ground. Hardly breathing, Pippin drew nearer, foot by foot. At last he knelt down. Then he put his hands out stealthily and slowly lifted the lump up. It did not seem quite so heavy as he had expected. Only some bundle of odd ones perhaps after all, he thought with a strange sense of relief. But he did not put the bundle down again. He stood for a moment clasping it. Then an idea came into his mind. He tiptoed away, found a large stone, and came back. Quickly now he drew off the cloth, wrapped the stone in it, and kneeling down, laid it back by the wizard's hand. Then at last he looked at the thing that he had uncovered. There it was, a smooth globe of crystal, now dark and dead, lying bare before his knees. Pippin lifted it, covered it hurriedly in his own cloak, and half turned to go back to his bed. At that moment Gandalf moved in his sleep and muttered some words. They seemed to be in a strange tongue. His hand groped out and clasped the wrapped stone. Then he sighed and did not move again. "You idiotic fool," Pippin muttered to himself. "You're going to get yourself into frightful trouble. Put it back, quick!" Oh, that's nasty. But he found now that his knees quaked, and he did not dare to go near enough to the wizard to reach the bundle. "I'll never get it back now without waking him," he thought. "Not till I'm a bit calmer, so I may as well have a look first. Not just here, though." He stole away and sat down on a green hillock not far from his bed. The moon looked in over the edge of the dell. Pippin sat with his knees drawn up and the ball between them. He bent low over it, looking like a greedy child stooping over a bowl of food in a corner away from the others. He drew his cloak aside and gazed at it. The air seemed still intense about him. At first the globe was dark, black as jet, with the moonlight gleaming on its surface. Then there came a faint glow and stir in the heart of it, and it held his eyes so that now he could not look away. Soon all the inside seemed on fire. The ball was spinning, or the lights within were revolving. Suddenly the lights went out. He gave a gasp and struggled, but he remained bent, clasping the ball with both hands. Closer and closer he bent, and then became rigid, lips moving soundlessly for a while. Then with a strangled cry he fell back and lay still. The cry was piercing. The guards leapt down from the banks. All the camp was soon astir.
"So this is the thief,"
said Gandalf. Hastily he cast his cloak over the globe where it lay.
"But you, Pippin, this is a grievous turn of things."
He knelt by Pippin's body. The hobbit was lying on his back, rigid, with unseeing eyes staring up at the sky.
"The devilry! What mischief has he done to himself and to all of us?"
The wizard's face was drawn and haggard. He took Pippin's hand and bent over his face, listening for his breath. Then he laid his hands on his brow. The hobbit shuddered. His eyes closed. He cried out and sat up, staring in bewilderment at all the faces round him, pale in the moonlight. "It is not for you, Saruman!" he cried in a shrill and toneless voice, shrinking away from Gandalf. "I will send for it at once. Do you understand? Say just that!" Then he struggled to get up and escape, but Gandalf held him gently and firmly.
"Peregrine Took,"
he said.
"come back."
The hobbit relaxed and fell back, clinging to the wizard's hand. "Gandalf!" he cried. "Gandalf, forgive me!"
"Forgive you?"
said the wizard.
"Tell me first what you have done."
I took the ball and looked at it," stammered Pippin. "And I saw things that frightened me. And I wanted to go away, but I couldn't. And then he came and questioned me, and he looked at me, and that is all I remember."
"That won't do,"
said Gandalf sternly.
"What did you see, and what did you say?"
Pippin shut his eyes and shivered, but said nothing. They all stared at him in silence, except Merry, who turned away. But Gandalf's face was still hard.
"Speak,"
he said. In a low, hesitating voice, Pippin began again, and slowly his words grew clearer and stronger. "I saw a dark sky and tall battlements," he said, "and tiny stars that seemed very far away and long ago, yet hard and clear. Then the stars went in and out. They were cut off by things with wings. Very big, I think, really, but in the glass they looked like bats wheeling round the tower. I thought there were 9 of them. One of them began to fly straight towards me, getting bigger and bigger. It had a horrible... No, I can't say. I tried to get away, because I thought it would fly out. But when it had covered all the globe, it disappeared. Then he came. He did not speak so that I could hear his words. He just looked, and I understood." With that, Gandalf returned to the others, who were still standing by the Orthanc stone in troubled thought.
"Peril comes in the night when we least expect it," he said. "We have had a narrow escape."
"How is the hobbit, Pippin?" asked Aragorn.
"I think all will be well now,"
answered Gandalf.
"He was not held long, and hobbits have an amazing power of recovery. The memory, or the horror of it, will probably fade quickly. Too quickly, perhaps. Will you, Aragorn, take the Orthanc stone and guard it? It is a dangerous charge."
Dangerous indeed, but not to all, said Aragorn. There is one who may claim it by right. For this assuredly is the Palantir of Orthanc from the treasury of Elendil, set here by the kings of Gondor. Now my hour draws near. I will take it. Gandalf looked at Aragorn, and then, to the surprise of others, he lifted the covered stone and bowed as he presented it.
Receive it, Lord, he said, in earnest of other things that shall be given back. But if I may counsel you in the use of your own, do not use it. Yet, be wary.
When have I been hasty or unwary, who have waited and prepared for so many long years? Said Aragorn.
Never yet. Do not then stumble at the end of the road,
answered Gandalf.
But at least keep this thing secret, you and all others that stand here. The hobbit peregrine above all should not know where it is bestowed. The evil fit may come on him again, for alas, he has handled it and looked in it, and it never should have happened. He ought never to have touched it in Isengard, and there I should have been quicker.
Over the plains Shadowfax was flying, needing no urging and no guidance. Less than an hour had passed, and they had reached the fords of Isen and crossed them. The mound of the riders and its cold spears lay grey behind them. Pippin was recovering. He was warm, but the wind in his face was keen and refreshing. He was with Gandalf. The horror of the stone and of the hideous shadow of the moon was fading, things left behind in the mists of the mountains or in a passing dream. He drew a deep breath. I did not know you rode bareback, Gandalf, he said. You haven't a saddle or bridle.
I do not ride elf fashion except on Shadowfax, said Gandalf. But Shadowfax will have no harness. You do not ride Shadowfax. He is willing to carry you, or not. If he is willing, that is enough. It is then his business to see that you remain on his back, unless you jump off into the air.
How fast is he going? Asked Pippin. Fast by the wind, but very smooth. And how light his footfalls are.
He is running now as swift as the swiftest horse can gallop, answered Gandalf. But that is not fast for him. The land is rising a little here, and is more broken than it was beyond the river. But see how the white mountains are drawing near under the stars. Yonder are the three-horned peaks, like black spears. It will not be long before we reach the branching roads and come to the Deeping Pool, where the battle was fought 2 nights ago.
Pippin was silent again for a while. He heard Gandalf singing softly to himself, murmuring brief snatches of rhyme in many tongues, as the miles ran under them. At last the wizard passed into a song of which the hobbit caught a few words. A few lines came clear to his ears through the rushing of the wind. Tall ships and tall kings, 3 times 3. What brought they from the foundered land over the flowing sea? 7 stars and 7 stones and 1 white tree. What are you singing, Gandalf? Asked Pippin.
I was just running over some of the rhymes of lore in my mind, answered the wizard. Hobbits, I suppose, have forgotten them, even those that they ever knew.
No, not all, said Pippin. And we have many of our own which wouldn't interest you, perhaps. But I have never heard this one. What is it about? The 7 stars and the 7 stones.
About the Palantir of the kings of old, said Gandalf.
And what are they?
The name meant that which looks far away. The Orthanc stone was one.
Then it was not made, Pippin hesitated, by the enemy.
No, said Gandalf, nor by Saruman. It is beyond his art and beyond Sauron's too. The Palantir came from beyond Westerness from Eldamar. The Noldor made them. Fëanor himself maybe wrought them, in days so long ago that the time cannot be measured in years. But there is nothing that Sauron cannot turn to evil uses. Alas for Saruman! It was his downfall, as I now perceive. Perilous to us all are the devices of an art deeper than we possess ourselves. Yet he must bear the blame. Fool, to keep it secret for his own profit. Nor did he ever speak of it to any of the council. We had not yet given thought to the fate of the Palantir of Gondor and its ruinous walls. By men they were almost forgotten. Even in Gondor there was secret known only to a few. In Arnor they were remembered only in a rhyme of lore among the Dunedain. See now, said Gandalf, the Westfold Dales are opening before us. Here we come back to the eastward road. The dark shadow yonder is the mouth of the Deeping Pool. That way lies Aglarond and the glittering caves. Do not ask me about them. Ask Gimli if you meet again, and for the first time you may get an answer longer than you wish. You will not see the caves yourself, not on this journey. Soon they will be far behind.
I thought you were going to stop at Helm's Deep, said Pippin. Where were you going then?
to Minas Tirith before the seas of war surround it.
Oh, and how far is that?
Leagues upon leagues,
Answered Gandalf.
thrice as far as the dwellings of King Theoden, and they are more than 100 miles east from here. As the messengers of Mordor fly, Shadowfax must run along a road, which will prove the swifter. We shall ride now till daybreak, and that is some hours away. Then even Shadowfax must rest in some hollow of the hills at Erebus, I hope. Sleep if you can. You may see the first glimmer of dawn upon the golden roof of the House of Yorl, and in 2 days thence you shall see the purple shadow of Mount Mindorluin, and the walls of the Tower of Denethor white in the morning. Away now, Shadowfax. Run, great heart, run as you have never run before. Now we are come to lands where you are fold, and every stone you know. Run now. Hoop is in speed.
Shadowfax tossed his head and cried aloud, as if a trumpet had summoned him. Shadowfax tossed his head and cried aloud, as if a trumpet had summoned him to battle. Then he sprang forward. Fire flew from his feet. Night rushed over him. As he fell slowly into sleep, Pippin had a strange feeling. He and Gandalf were as still as stone, seated upon the statue of a running horse, while the world rolled away beneath his feet with a great noise of wind. Oh yes, I completely forgot. Question of the day. How would you deal with Pippin's impossible curiosity, the kind of curiosity that gets him into trouble? What would you do in Gandalf's place? Go ahead and post a comment. Whew. So, I'll see everybody later, reading the first chapter of Book 4. So, until then, God bless and Namari.